And now we will learn how to convert a continuous variable and make it into a discrete variable. Usually when we do this, we're changing it into ordinal discrete variables. And this process is also sometimes called collapsing a variable, and you'll see why. Visits is a variable in our data set, and it's in the same data set we've been using for this entire video series. The numbers range between 1 and 20, but we would like to break visits down into 3 categories. We would like to have any value in the variable visits that are between 1 and 7 inclusively to be assigned the value of 1 and to be labeled the word rarely, which means the respondent rarely visits the pool. We would like the values somewhere from 18 to 15 inclusive to be assigned the value of number 2 and given the label sometimes, because if they come to the pool between 8 and 15 times a summer, that means they come sometimes. And of course, if they visit the pool anywhere between 16 and 20 times a summer, we would like to relabel or recode those values to equal the number 3 and then put on the label often, which means any respondent who had values in the variable visits between these amounts visits the pool often. Now, that means that when you look at the data sheet, all of the numbers that are between 1 and 7 inclusively will become the number 1 in the new variable that we are going to create. And all of the numbers that are between 8 and 15 inclusively will be changed to the number 2 in our new variable. And of course, there are only 2 values that fit the description between 16 and 20, but in the new variable we create, they will become the value of 3. Now we can use recode or replace exactly as we learned it in prior videos. Recode has more simple code, but we're going to add some properties to the recode command in this video. Let's name the new variable visits f for frequency, meaning we're labeling the frequency of the visit. We should look at the data before we recode. So if we take a peek here and we say, okay, here we have visits and we only have 6 variables. But after we recode visits, we'll have an additional variable called visits f, and it will only have values between 1 and 3, and it will correspond to the values in the original variable. So, here's the code. You type recode, just like we did in an earlier video, then the name of the variable, in this case visits, but look closely at the syntax of how to do it if you're recoding many values of a continuous variable. This code, when you use recode, is a little bit different than we saw in the previous videos because we're recoding many values of a continuous variable. And it really is very simple. The command recode, then the name of the variable. Now what's going on in these parentheses? Well, this is something fantastic in Stata. You see this / here? This is not a division symbol. What this is telling Stata is, please recode the variable visits so that in the variable visits, every value between 1 and 7 will then be assigned the value of 1. And in this same variable, every value between 5 and 15 will be reassigned the value 2. And in this variable visits, every value between 16 and 20 inclusive will be reassigned to the number 3. Then, of course, because we don't want to mess up the original variable visits, we put comma gen and we create a new variable, visits f. So visits f will only have 3 values, but they will correspond to the values in the original variable as I demonstrate. Now I typed in the code off camera so that I wouldn't make a mistake and waste anybody's time. But if you would like to pause the video as you type it in, you can type it in exactly as you see it here. Recode visits, parentheses 1/7 equal 1, space, parentheses 8/15 equal 2, space, etc. Now look what happens when I hit enter. Well, the fact that I did not get an error message is very encouraging. And when I come up here and open this, aha, notice there is a new variable, visits f. And notice how the values correspond to the original variable visits. 1, that means it's between 1 and 7. 2, that means it's between 8 and 15. Pick a random one. This one is 2, and the corresponding value in the original variable is between 8 and 15. If you remember from the diagram, there were only 2 values of 3 for visits f. This is between 16 and 19. This is between 16 and 20. Those are the only 2 number 3s, and those are the only 2 values between 16 and 20. So it did recode visits to a variable with only 3 values representing the 3 categories of how frequently somebody visits. Now let's use replace to do the exact same thing and get the same result. To make your data sheet fresh, you should quit Stata without saving the changes. If you already saved the changes, you could re-download the data file fresh. This way, your new data file will not have the new variable we created, so we can create it again now and see that it's the same thing. When you use replace, you should check the data after each step. That is what really will improve your skill of coding when working with Stata. So here's the code. Okay, first you generate a new variable called visits f, and whenever you generate a new variable, as we learned, you have to immediately assign it something. But in this case, you're using a logical test. You're saying, create this new variable and make it equal to number 1 if and only if this variable for the same respondent in the same row is less than or equal to 7. So let's just type that in now. Gen visits f equal 1. So we do this. Gen visits f equal 1 if and only if the variable visits for the same row and the same respondent is less than or equal to 7. Now let's just double check the code. Should work. Now when I hit enter and I did not get an error message, let's check the data immediately. Aha! There is a new variable there, and only the values that correspond to the values in visits less than or equal to 7 are assigned the number 1. And for now, all the other values in this new variable are blank. So what do? Well, the next line of code should say, replace visits, replace whatever the value in visits f is, and make it equal to 2 if and only if the original variable visits is greater than 7, and also this original variable is less than equal to 15. And again, I like to type it in off camera because I make typos because the microphone is between me and the keyboard. But if you like, you can pause the video and type in exactly these characters. After you hit enter, if you did not get an error message, you should check the data. Aha! Now, many of those blank values are now changed to the number 2. And notice, the number 2 corresponds to the original variable visits for any value between 8 and 15. Go ahead and pick any number 2, then go across the row to the original variable, and you will see the original variable's value is between 8 and 15 anytime the new variable shows the number 2. Now at this point, I'm absolutely sure that you know what the final line of code will be. It's basically the same as the second to last line of code with the different cut points for the different values. And again, if you'd like to pause the video and type in this code, that's fine. But I have already typed it in. When we hit enter and look at the data one more time, you can see that the two final blank values have been changed to the number 3 because there are only two values in the original variable that are between 16 and 20. What you should do after each time is run a table on your new variable. And what you will see is that in the new variable, 8 out of the 20 items are in category 1. 10 of the items in the new variable, or 10 of the values, are in category 2, between 8 and 15. And only 2 items are between 16 and 20. So this will tell you the frequency of the values in the new variable after you recode and replace. Now, just to finish properly, let's put labels on the values. Here's the code that we learned in a prior video. Label define is the command. VF label will be the name of the label, and then 1 rarely, 2 sometimes, 3 often. Now, of course, I like to type in the code off camera so I don't make a typo, but you can pause the video and type in the first line of code necessary to create the label that we're going to put. If you push enter and you do not get an error message, you're in good shape. And now the last line of code applies the label we just created to the new variable. Let's go ahead and type it in. And again, I like to type it in off camera so I don't have a problem with my microphone. And when I hit enter, I notice I did not get an error message. So when I open up the data sheet, I can see the labels are applied. The best thing you can do is compare the table with no labels to the table that has labels. Tab, visits, F. When I hit enter, and here are the two tables. I don't know if I can put them both in the same shot, but notice 8 have the value of 1, which means 8 people visit rarely. 10 has the value of 2, which means 10 people visit sometimes. And 2 people have the value of 3, which means 2 people visits often.